Many young men walk through life like ghosts in their own bodies, numb, scanning faces for signs, hoping for a connection, but terrified to be seen. You look at a woman and wonder, what is she thinking? Is she into me? Am I enough? But that's the wrong question. The real question is, do you even know what you are feeling? In the temple, my master once told me, if your own heart is a stranger, every other heart will be a battlefield. And many of you, they are already at war. With loneliness, with rejection, not knowing how to say, I'm hurting, without sounding weak. But let me tell you, this reading minds is not magic. It's not manipulation. It is awareness. It is learning to see not just with your eyes, but with your soul. And that journey doesn't begin by studying others. It begins by sitting in silence and finally listening to yourself. Today, I will show you how to read people, not just what they say, but what they carry, their fears, their longing, their truth. But first, you must meet your own. Let us begin. Wow, ask me, how do I read someone's mind? But before I can answer that, I must ask you another question. Have you ever truly read your own? You see, when most people look at others, they are not seeing the person in front of them. They are seeing a projection, a reflection, a mirror. What you notice in others, what triggers you, what attracts you, what you believe about them, is more about you than it is about them. This is the mirror principle. Imagine you see a woman looking at you. She says nothing. Her face is calm. But in your mind, a storm begins. She's not interested. She's judging me. I'm not enough. You think you are reading her. But in truth, you are only reading your fear. Because that fear was already there. Long before she appeared. We don't see people as they are. We see them as we are. And this is why many men feel confused in dating, in relationships, and emotional connections. They want to decode someone else without ever understanding that they're looking through a distorted lens. You cannot read a book clearly with dirty glasses. You cannot read someone's emotions if your own heart is buried under shame, resentment, and self-doubt. If you believe the world is cold, you will miss the warmth in people's eyes. If you expect rejection, even kindness will feel like a lie. And if you carry the belief that you are unlovable, no amount of affection will ever feel real. So what do? We begin by turning the mirror inward, not with judgment, but with gentleness. Sit with yourself. Look honestly, not for what is wrong, but for what is hidden. What emotions have you locked away? What stories about yourself are you still believing? And can you begin to meet them with compassion? This is where the true training begins. Because if you want to feel someone's energy, someone's presence, someone's truth, you must first get familiar with your own. Otherwise, you are not reading others. You are projecting. You are guessing. You are reacting. There is a big difference between perception and projection. To become perceptive, we must clean the mirror. We must practice awareness. We must develop inner stillness. And we must stop rushing to label what we feel and instead simply allow it to be. But this kind of listening to yourself and to others does not happen in noise. It begins in silence. And so we arrive at the next step. Silence. Not just the absence of words, but the presence of attention. A silence so deep it allows you to finally see. When you stop trying to impress, stop trying to predict, stop trying to win, you begin to notice. You notice how someone looks away when they speak about their childhood. You notice how their breathing shifts when a certain topic arises. You notice how their smile comes slower when you compliment them, as if they're not used to being seen. And in that silence, a space is created. A space where truth can emerge, where connection can happen. But let me remind you, silence is not passive, it is a discipline. Because most people cannot sit in silence. They feel exposed, uncomfortable, out of control. But control was never the goal. Connection was. And connection does not grow through strategy. It grows through presence. So the question is no longer, how do I read minds? But rather, how still can I become? How deep can I listen? How present can I stay, even when I don't know what to say? This is where silence becomes your teacher. This is where Observation begins to replace assumption. And it is from this place of quiet attention that you will learn the next truth. That's what you feel in yourself. You begin to feel in others. You will walk into a room and sense the weight in the air. You will sit beside someone and feel that their heart is tired. You will listen to their words and yet hear the ache beneath them. This is the path. From self-reflection to stillness, from stillness to perception, from perception to presence. And slowly, mind by mind, heart by heart, the mirror becomes clear, and people will no longer be mysteries. They will be stories waiting to be heard. So now, we speak of silence. Not the silence you hear in a quiet room, but the silence inside yourself. Because it is one thing to stop speaking. It is another way to stop grasping. Grasping for approval, grasping for control, grasping for the next thing to say, so you don't have to feel the discomfort of the unknown. You see, most people do not listen to understand. They listen to reply. And beneath that reply is fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of not being seen as intelligent. Fear of not being in control of the conversation. But what if you didn't need to control anything? What if your presence was enough? There is a kind of power that does not come from speaking louder or knowing more. It comes from being still. In the temple, we were taught. The master does not chase answers. He becomes quiet enough for the answers to come. So I ask you, can you sit with someone and say nothing and still feel deeply connected? Most people cannot. They rush to fill the gaps. They fear that silence means something is wrong. But silence is not a void. It is a doorway. When you sit quietly with a person, you are saying something very profound. I am here. I am not judging. I am not trying to fix you. I am simply present. And in a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the one who knows how to listen becomes magnetic. You will notice this especially in dating and relationships. The one who listens deeply, not just to words, but to emotions, to energy, to subtle changes in mood, becomes unforgettable. Because to be truly heard is rare. And when someone feels heard, they feel safe. And when they feel safe, they begin to open. And now you are not just hearing them, you are reading them, not with your eyes, not even with your mind, but with your whole being. You begin to see things others miss. The hesitation before they answer, the way they hold their hands when they talk about family, the flicker in their eyes when they say, I'm fine. All of this, hidden in silence. All of this, invisible to the man who only listens with his ears. And yet, silence is not something you use as a tactic. You stop needing to perform. You stop needing to fix. You stop needing to be anything, and so you become everything. This is when you truly start to perceive, not just behaviors, but emotions. Not just patterns, but pain. Not just what is said, but what is carried. And this perception requires discipline. Because when you hear pain in someone's voice, or see sadness in their eyes, your instinct will be to do something, to fix, to explain, to advise. But the deeper work is to simply hold space. Hold the silence, hold the discomfort, hold the weight of what is unspoken without collapsing into it or running from it. Because if you can hold space for someone else, you become rare. You become trustworthy. You become safe. And safety is the beginning of intimacy. Now perhaps you wonder, but what if their emotions overwhelm me? What if I feel too much? And this is why the next lesson is so important. You must learn emotional containment. Being present with others does not mean drowning in their feelings. It means standing like a mountain, still, strong, calm, while the weather passes around you. It means listening without absorbing, feeling without losing yourself, caring without needing to control. You must learn to be like water, fluid, adaptable, but also like stone, rooted, immovable. This is emotional discipline. And without it, your ability to read people will always be distorted. Because if you are swept away by your own emotions, you cannot sense someone else's clearly. And so, the path continues. From the silence of the mind, we move to the stillness of the heart. From listening to others, we learn to hold space for them. And from holding space, we begin to master our emotional presence. This is how you begin to feel the truth of a person, not by chasing it, but by becoming still enough for it to reveal itself. Let us continue. We have spoken of silence, of the power that emerges when you stop rushing to speak and begin instead to listen. But what happens when, in that silence, you begin to feel too much? What happens when another's pain awakens your own? When does someone's anxiety tightens your chest? When does someone's anger trigger something buried inside you? This is where many fall. Not because they don't care, but because they've never learned how to contain what they feel. You see, presence is not just stillness. It is also a strength. Not the strength to fight or resist, but the strength to remain. To remain centered when emotion rises. To remain grounded when someone else is unraveling. To remain stable when old wounds begin to stir. This is what I call emotional containment. It is not suppression. Suppression is a force. It is denial. It pushes emotion away. Containment is different. It is space. It is an allowance. It is power. Yes, I feel this. And still, I am here. There is a moment that all men must face on this path. A moment where you sit across from someone you care about, and they bring their pain to you. And in that moment, your heart begins to race. Old patterns awaken. You feel the urge to defend, to escape, to fix, to shut down. But if you are to be the mountain, you must remain unmoved. Not numb, but unmoved. You must let the wave crash without drowning in it. You must let the fire burn without running from the heat. Because if you cannot hold yourself, you will try to control them. You will try to stop their sadness, not because it's wrong, but because you can't bear it. You will try to argue with their emotions, not because they're invalid, but because they threaten your own sense of control. You will shut them down because you don't feel safe. This is not connection. This is defense. Real connection only begins when you become the container. Not a wall that blocks emotion, but a vessel that can hold it without spilling. Think of a cup. The cup does not resist the water. It simply holds it. No matter how full, no matter how hot, the shape remains. This is what emotional mastery looks like. You learn to hold tension without needing to relieve it immediately. You learn to breathe through discomfort rather than react from it. You learn to observe your own inner world as it shifts, as it stirs, as it storms, without losing yourself in the process. Because when you cannot contain your own emotion, you will be unable to read someone else's clearly. Their anxiety becomes your anxiety. Their sadness becomes your panic. And now, you are not reading them. You are only reacting. But when you are calm, steady, quiet inside, then every word they speak carries a frequency you can feel. Every shift in their tone reveals something deeper. And every silence between their sentences begins to speak. That level of awareness only becomes possible when you are emotionally clear. So how do we build this containment? We return to the breath. Always the breath. You feel tension. Breathe into it. You feel anger. Breathe and stay still. You feel grief rising. Let it rise. But stay grounded. When the sea of emotion tries to carry you away, your breath holds you in place. And slowly, you begin to see the difference between reaction and response, between chaos and clarity, between the fear of feeling and the strength of staying. And this strength, this containment, becomes the gateway to perception. Because when someone is speaking to you, they are not only sharing words, they are sharing energy. And if your internal space is calm, you can feel that energy like a ripple in water. You sense the weight behind their story. You notice the pauses, the unfinished thoughts, the emotional charge behind their smile. And you don't need to interrupt. You don't need to rescue. You don't need to protect them from their truth. You simply sit there, open, grounded, unmoved, and they will feel it. And because they feel safer, they will give you more. This is what it means to read someone. Not to guess, not to manipulate, but to feel what they cannot say and still stay with them, completely present. And now, as you grow in emotional containment, your eyes begin to sharpen, your ears begin to hear more, your heart begins to tune in, and what was once invisible begins to reveal itself through the body, through movement, through micro expressions. And so we continue. Now that you are stable, you are ready for the next layer to read the unspoken through the body. Let us go deeper. Now, you are still. You are listening. You are not rushing to speak, not rushing to fix, not rushing to run. You are here, fully. And because you are still, the world around you begins to move in ways you never noticed before. The next lesson is this: the body always speaks first. Long before a person decides what to say, long before they shape their words, the truth has already passed through their breath, through their hands, through their posture. But most do not see it. Not because it is hidden, but because their mind are too loud to observe what is quiet. This is the art of reading people. Not through tricks, not through tactics, but through body is ancient. It remembers everything the mind tries to forget. When someone is afraid, their voice tightens. When someone is ashamed, their shoulders shrink. When someone wants to be seen, but doesn't know how, they glance at you, then quickly away. Do you see? In a conversation, words are the surface. But the body is the ocean beneath it. A man might tell you, "I'm fine," but his fists are clenched, his foot is tapping, his eyes avoid yours. And if you are paying attention, you will know that what he says is not what he feels. A woman might smile at your jokey, but her laugh is delayed, her eyes are tired, and she exhales with tension. And you will feel that her joy is a performance, not a presence. These signals are everywhere, but only visible to the quiet mind. And this is why the earlier steps matter. You must contain your own emotions before you can sense theirs. You must become silent before you can truly observe. Because when you are truly present, the body becomes transparent. But not only theirs, your own. You must also learn to read yourself. Notice when you feel rejected, do your shoulders tense? When you try to impress, do you sit taller, speak faster? When you feel insecure, do you cross your arms, shrink your breath? The more attuned you are to your own body, the more sensitive you become to what others carry. This is why martial arts is not just about movement. It is about awareness. Every slight weight shift, every twitch of muscle reveals intent. The body reveals energy before the action comes. So it is in life. So it is in relationships. A person may not tell you they are anxious, but their hands will fidget. They may not say they are attracted, but their pupils dilate. They may not admit they are closed, but they will lean away ever so slightly. To read the body is to read the soul in motion. But this requires a soft eye. Not a detective's eye, looking to catch. Not a hunter's eye, looking to gain. A soft idol, receptive, open. Let go of interpretation. Let go of judgment. Do not force meaning. Simply feel what is there. Because when you become too eager to define, you stop observing. It is not your job to diagnose someone. It is your job to be with them as they are. And if you watch long enough, the body will always show you what the person is afraid to say. But remember this: what is shown is not weakness. It is true. And when someone's truth is revealed, they are not asking to be fixed. They are asking to be felt. So when you notice someone's avoidance, or their nervous laughter, or their shrinking posture, don't rush in with solutions. Simply acknowledge within yourself what you are seeing. Maybe even ask softly, what are you feeling right now? If they trust you, they may tell you. If not, let them keep their silence. But your awareness still holds them. This is what it means to understand someone, not from the outside, but from within. And so we begin to notice every hand gesture, every pause, every sigh is a doorway. And if you remain grounded, compassionate, still that doorway opens. And behind it, you begin to sense something deeper. Not just physical behavior, but emotional history. You realize this person is not just acting this way randomly. They are reacting to something old, to something unfinished, to something unhealed. And now, the body becomes not just a signal, but an echo of the past, of pain, of patterns. And this leads us to the next step. Once you see the body, you must ask, what has this person survived? What are they still carrying? This is how we enter the realm of emotional echoes, of history written into habit. of stories hidden in the skin. Let us continue. What you now begin to see is not just a person's posture, not just their gestures, not even just their reactions. You are beginning to see the story behind the movements, the emotion behind the pattern, the past behind the present. This is what I call the emotional echo. An echo is not the original sound. It is what remains. It is the aftershock, the imprint. It carries the shape of something that once was real, and even when the event is long gone, the vibration lingers. Every person you meet carries echoes, from childhood, from heartbreak, from betrayal, from love that was once given, then taken away. And these echoes, they live not in the words people speak, but in the way they defend themselves. You see, most people are not acting from the present. They are acting from a wound. A man who flirts with every woman he sees may not be confident. He may be terrified of not being wanted. A woman who shuts down when you ask something vulnerable is not cold. She may have been punished in the past for being soft. A friend who always jokes, who never gets serious, may not be carefree. He may just be hiding the parts of himself he believes no one would accept. And the question is, can you see that? Can you listen? Not just to the voice in front of you, but to the pain behind it. Because when you do, something inside you will soften. You no longer take it personally. You no longer need to control it. You no longer need to be right. Instead, you become curious. Where does this reaction come from? What has this person endured to make them believe they have to act this way? And suddenly, you're no longer seeing a reaction. You're seeing a human being in their entirety, in their survival, in their suffering. This is when true empathy begins. But empathy is not pity. Empathy is presence. It is standing at the edge of someone's inner world and saying, I will not try to fix you, but I will not leave, and that is rare. Because most people, when faced with emotional echoes, run. They say, this person is too much, too emotional, too distant, too close. But you have been trained to see differently. You do not just see what a person shows. You see what they protect. You see the man who interrupts constantly and feel that he was once invisible. You see the woman who over-explains and senses that no one ever made her feel understood. You see the silence in someone's eyes and recognize that they once spoke their truth and were punished for it. And so now everything becomes meaningful. Not in a heavy way, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, reverent way. You begin to understand that nothing anyone does is random. Everything is a strategy to stay safe, to stay loved, to stay in control of the pain they don't know how to face. And now, you are no longer reacting. You are witnessing. And this witnessing is sacred. But to witness someone's echo, you must first witness your own. Ask yourself, what part of you still flinches when someone gets too close? What part of you still gets angry? Not because you're truly angry, but because anger feels safer than vulnerability. What part of you pushes people away, even when you want a connection? These are your echoes. They do not make you broken. They make you human. And when you embrace your emotional history, when you see your patterns not as failures, but as footprints from the path you've walked, you become softer. You become wiser. You become clearer. And with this clarity, you can now meet others where they are, not where you wish they were. This is a real connection. This is intimacy. This is presence. To feel a person's fear and not judge. To sense their resistance and not push. To hear their pain and not try to silence it. And when you do this, something extraordinary happens. They relax. They open. They feel seen. Because for the first time, someone is not reacting to their echo. Someone is holding it. And this holding is healing. But there is one more piece to this. Because even after you can see the echoes, you must still learn how to engage, how to respond. And for this, you must cultivate one more quality, intentional expression. Not speaking out of impulse, not reacting from emotion, but choosing your words and actions like a craftsman shaping stone. So let us continue. Let us now speak of expression, clear, conscious, and powerful. You have listened. You have watched. You have felt. You have stood still in the fire of emotion and stayed when others would run. Now, one final step remains, not inward, outward, because insight without expression becomes stagnation. It is not enough to see someone. At some point, you must speak, not to fix, not to impress, but to connect. This is where we bring everything together: intentional expression. You see, many people speak just to release pressure. They speak from impulse, from fear, from habit, and then wonder why others don't hear them. But words are not tools for control. They are bridges, built slowly, carefully, brick by brick, breath by breath. When you speak from impulse, you throw bricks. When you speak with intention, you build. And to build, you must first become clear within. Ask yourself each time before you speak, why am I saying this? Not, what do I want to get? But, what do I want to give? Do you want to offer clarity, comfort, understanding, honesty? Or are you trying to protect your image, to avoid discomfort, to prove your worth? If your motive is reaction, stay silent. If your motive is connection, speak gently, speak slowly, and speak true. You see, intentional speech is not about being perfect. It's about being present, rooted, clear. And from that place, even one sentence can open a heart. Because when someone feels that your words are chosen, not thrown, they listen, not just with their ears, but with their body. A man once asked me, "Master, how do I make her feel safe?" I said, "First, you must make your nervous system a calm place to be. Because your presence is your message. Your words are only the ripples, the stillness behind them. That is what people feel. So learn to pause before you respond. Feel your breath, touch your center, and ask what is needed here?" Sometimes it is softness. Sometimes silence is the most powerful reply. You don't always need to explain. You don't always need to defend. You don't always need to teach. You simply need to offer yourself calmly and completely. This is what changes people. Not speeches, not tactics, not performance, but the true truth. Not the truth you rehearse to seem strong, not the truth you use to make others feel small, but the quiet truth that asks for nothing. The truth that says, "This is what I feel. This is where I stand. This is who I am," without force, without shame. And when you express from this place, you no longer fear how the other person reacts. Because you're not speaking to get a result. You're speaking because your truth deserves a voice, and they deserve your honesty. And so now you've come full circle. You have learned to observe, to feel, to hold, to see through the body into the emotional history. And now, to respond, not from noise, but from depth. This is how you read people's minds, not by manipulating, not by predicting, but by being so deeply present with them that they no longer need to explain themselves. You read their mind not because you're clever, but because you've become quiet enough to hear what most people are too loud to feel. And what's more, you no longer need to be read either. Because your expression is honest, your emotion is contained. Your awareness is sharp. Your presence is open. This is what makes a man magnetic, not charm, not strategy, not status, but the ability to stand in silence, listen deeply, and speak from the deepest part of yourself. And in that stillness, that strength, that truth, connection is no longer something you chase. It becomes something that finds you. Because now you are not just reading people. You are meeting them. And when two people meet fully, openly, without masks, even for a few seconds, it is no longer just conversation. It is healing. So walk into the world not as someone trying to be heard, but as someone who hears. Not as someone trying to be seen, but as someone who sees. And the world will open to you. You've made it here, not just to the end of a video, but to the edge of something deeper within yourself. And maybe for the first time, you didn't just listen with your ears. You felt it. You recognized yourself in it. The silence, the struggle, the longing to connect, to be seen, to finally understand not just others, but your mind, your own heart, your patterns. That's not an easy path. That's not something you scroll past. That's real work. And it's rare. So if this moved something in you, even just one sentence, one moment, one truth, then do something simple but powerful. Share this. Because you never know who's out there right now numb, lost lonely, feeling invisible in a loud world. This message might be the exact thing they needed to feel human again, to feel seen, to remember their strength and their softness. Comment below. Tell me, what part of this opened something in you? What did you recognize in yourself? I read them. I carry them. We are not so different. Like the video. Not for numbers, not for ego, but because it signals to this platform that depth matters. Real conversations still have a place here. And finally, subscribe. Not because you need more noise, but because you're walking a path now. A path of presence, of awareness, of connection. And I will meet you here, each step of the way, because this isn't content, it's a practice. A space to return to, when the world forgets to feel. So until next time, stay still, stay soft, stay awake. And remember, you don't need to read minds to connect with someone. You only need to see what they've forgotten and show them, by your presence, that they are already understood.